Coming up, Soyuz launch.
A 1,000-meter jump.
Kicksat ran into a little bit of trouble. Plus, we talk about the Mars settler experience. Stay tuned. This is tomorrow. And welcome to Tomorrow, episode 7.14 for Saturday, May 10th, 2014. My name is Benny H, and with me as always is HB1, which stands for Honey Bunny Number 1. We'll be your hosts for this episode. We've got a great deal of space news coming up, and I'd like to thank the people who have sponsored the space news episode of tomorrow. These are the patrons of tomorrow. They've spent at least $10 on this specific episode. So they've said, you know what, these episodes are awesome. I'm going to give you at least $10 for this specific episode to make it go. And you can learn more about that at patreon.com/TMRO. And as a reminder, we are a crowd-funded show. So if you enjoy the show and you get something of value out of the show, please consider giving value back to the show by sponsoring us. You don't have to sponsor us at that level. That's an insane, awesome level. But you know, every dollar helps. Right? It's cray.
Crazy.
All right. First up, a Soyuz launch of a spy satellite. We've got some kind of launch coverage. And by the way, you don't know it yet, but stupid water droplet. That's pretty much it. That's the only shot we could really find because it was a spy satellite. This launched Tuesday, May 6th at 13:49 Coordinated Universal Time. It's likely a Cobalt-class imaging satellite for the Russian military. That was a Soyuz 2.1A, and you can see some of the information on the sidebar about that particular rocket. It likely has an optical camera for high-resolution photos taken around the Earth. Now, the thing about the Cobalt-class satellites is we think, again, it's a classified satellite, so we don't have a lot of information on it, but we think it's like old school 60s era, take film of what you're looking at and drop the film canister back to Earth. I know.
That's awesome.
But you know what? You know, other than someone intercepting it,
unhackable.
I was gonna. Other than someone intercepting it, you can't hack the payload because you have to physically get the payload. Mm-hmm. How cool is that? So awesome. We don't know. It's classified, but I'm
also really appreciate the simultaneous earthquake that happened right
there.
I
like the. Was there really one?
No, right. It's just the camera was doing this for a second.
I like the. I like that particular launch photo because it's one of the few times you can see the actual raw power of a Soyuz rocket. Usually, really the cameras are far enough away where you don't really get to see it shake and just rattle. Yeah. But that was pretty cool.
No, that was really cool.
Speaking of Russia, no more Russian injunction function. That's fun. It's fun to say. So last week's show, we talked about how there was an injunction against ULA from buying Russian engines, specifically the RD-180. That's the engine that they use on the Atlas V. Mm-hmm. A judge had said, this might not be legal, but Judge Susan G. Braden basically said, okay, here's the deal. We're not sure if this is legal. We need to go to the Treasury and State Departments and ask them. Right. Well, the Treasury and State Departments got back and said, no, it's fine. So on May 8th, 2014, the same judge, Judge Susan G. Braden, dissolved the injunction and said, no, you're fine. So now United Launch Lines can, in fact, once again buy from Russia for the RD-180 engines that they use on the Atlas V rocket.
And good on that judge, being able to say, hey, hold on a second. We need a minute just to get all of our facts straight. Got all the facts straight and then said, no, that's totally a thing. It's okay. We're going to.
But it's not necessarily done, right? So the order stands unless, quote, unless and until the court receives the opinion from the Treasury, Commerce, and State Departments that the engine purchases do not contravene sanctions against Rogozin. I can't pronounce his name.
Rogozin?
Yeah, sure. And so, if at any time the U.S. government can go back at any time and say, actually, no, it looks like he is in fact benefiting from these purchases, and then the injunctions will be put back into place.
Yep.
So they have to. They don't have to continuously prove that the Russians aren't making the guy who's under sanctions, right? So basically, what it comes down to is the head guy of Roscosmos is in the sanctions list, and we're not allowed to give him money or do anything that will allow him to profit from us, essentially.
He's in a timeout.
He's in a timeout by the U.S. government.
And we're not supposed to talk to him right now.
We're not supposed to talk to him right now. And so United Launch Alliance buys engines from essentially his company. And so as long as it's only his company that benefits and not him personally, we're okay. But as soon as he personally benefits from it, the government can go, whoa, 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 not cool, guys, and prevent United Launch Alliance from buying it again. Which brings up an interesting idea. So this whole little snafu, right, of the U.S. buying engines from Russia for military payloads, for the Department of Defense on top of an Atlas V, they were like, "This is not okay, guys. Maybe we should consider bringing the engine production in-house."
Right.
So legislation was passed by a House subcommittee on Wednesday, May 7th, that says the U.S. military is going to spend $220 million the first year, and they're going to kick off a new U.S. engine development program. And the program has to have an engine ready no later than 2019.
Right.
So this is basically to replace the RD-180, or at least bring its production in-house,
right,
and allow a United Launch Alliance or someone else to use this engine, so commercial providers in the U.S. can use this engine without any fear of sanctions or anything else out of the U.S. from them purchasing these engines.
Which is something that we talked about when this issue first came up. We said that even if they brought everything in-house, who knows how long exactly it's going to be until they were going to be ready, you know, with full production on this, and that the ULA has a stockpile of engines. They said good for about 2 years worth of launches. It's currently 2014. Even if you say that 2015 to 2017, and these engines theoretically may not be ready until 2019.
Well, maybe, right? The bill states, quote, should develop a next generation liquid rocket engine that is made in the United States, meets the requirements of the national security space community, is developed not later than 2019.
Okay.
Right? So no later than, is developed using full and open competition, and is available for purchase by all space launch providers of the United States. So in theory, based on this bill, SpaceX could buy these engines and drop them into their rockets if they wanted to. I'm not saying they would, I'm saying they could, right? So later than 2019.
No later than 2019. Okay, good. Because, otherwise you're looking at, like I said, I mean, theoretically, if ULA can launch between 2015 and 2017, and then if these engines aren't done, but no later than a net date, as it were, that's an important detail. So I just wanted to make sure, because I was like, I didn't want there to be. That was a scary thing. Well, that's what we brought up originally, was like, what if there's going to be this gap, and then what are they going to do?
Well, they'd launch on a Delta IV, because the Delta IV does not use Russian engines. Right. The problem is the Delta IV costs more than an Atlas V.
Like a lot more.
So, I mean, it does. It's a more expensive rocket.
Yeah.
So, now, this hasn't fully passed. It still needs to be approved by the House and agreed by the Senate and President Obama. So, there's still some steps that need to be done, but it's a bill that's pushing through. So we'll see what happens there. So speaking along those, actually someone had asked earlier, is this... Johan asked, is this bad for SpaceX and Elon Musk lost the battle? No, well, first off, he's in a war to go to Mars, so this is just one little, right? I mean, this
doesn't bother him at all.
Right, yeah.
But then cooperation.
I'm sure he's not exactly happy about it. I don't know for certain, but I don't think they've lost anything, and if anyone missteps, then these injunctions can get put back into place.
Yep.
Really what it comes down to is Elon wants the right to bid for Department of Defense launches. He doesn't necessarily say we should get them. He just wants the right to bid for them. And so...
He's paving the way.
He's paving the way. And speaking of Elon Musk, SpaceX, we this actually happened last week, but we ran out of time in last week's show. This is a fairly long clip, but it is so awesome. We're going to roll the whole thing anyhow. This is the F9er, so the Falcon 9 reusable Dev 1, Development 1 unit, 1,000 meter jump. This is the highest that any of the F9ers have jumped. And this is higher than Grasshopper ever jumped. Remember, Grasshopper is retired, has been replaced with F9er Dev 1. Check this out. love the cows.
Moo.
Moo. I wonder what they're thinking right now. They're probably thinking, moo! Moo!
Get out of my way!
Moo! So this is like a 10-story building that they just launched into the air, had hover. It's now very slowly coming back down. I know. I hear Tim in the room going, oh my, this is amazing, this is awesome. It is. It really is.
0.621 miles.
Well, that would be an Imperial unit.
I'm just saying.
When we poo-poo Imperial.
Sure, except that Twitter earlier confused 1,000 meters with 3,000 meters, I think it was.
3,000 feet.
Yeah, but it was 3,000 feet. So there was a lot of confusion around that. So I figured I'd throw it out. You're welcome.
It just keeps going, right? I told you there's a long clip. This is how long this rocket was in the, and bonk. Now, combine this. So this is what you combine this with the landing of CRS-3's first stage in the ocean, where they were able to, all the way up in space, they were supersonic, faster than the speed of sound. They had a stage just like that, right? Same design stage, same landing legs. It relit its engines, it came back down, and it hovered over the ocean and dropped back down. So the two tests combined kind of prove, all right, so CRS-3 allows us to bring these stages back, supersonic, slow them down, and get them to where we need to be. And the F9 dev program says, and not only can we do that, we can precision control these stages and put them exactly where they need to be in the ground or, back on the landing pad. Now, there's still more tests that need to be done where you basically combine the two tests and precision land it into the ocean. I'm sure that's coming up someday in the future. I don't know when. And then once you start doing that, why not start landing on land? Once you can prove reliably over and over and over again, yes, we can do this, 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 drop it on land.
My only request would be that the landing legs have squeaky shoes on the bottom.
Speaking of SpaceX, Opals was delivered to the International Space Station on CRS-3. That's the commercial resupply mission. And this is an animation of the dexterous robot Dexter at the International Space Station removing Opals and dropping it onto ISS, which has happened. In fact, this is the first time SpaceX has launched technological experiments in the trunk. Now, the trunk is the section underneath the pressurized Dragon capsule, and so it's exposed to the vacuum of space. There is nothing protecting it from anything. It's right there, out there in space. There were two technological experiments, really big ones, brought up on the trunk section. One is the high definition Earth viewing experiment, and that's HDEV, and we talked about that a little bit last week, and you can actually watch live streams of that on Ustream.
So awesome.
And the other one is the optical payload for laser comm science, and that's Opals, which is what we're talking about now. Now, Opals is cool because what it's doing is high bandwidth communication in space using lasers, essentially. So traditionally you use radio waves in space, you send down whatever you need to do, and it's fairly low bandwidth, especially from a place like Mars, and that kind of sucks. So what Opals lets us do is it lets us take a laser and shoot it, and hopefully it goes through all the clouds and whatnot, and you'll actually be able to get a much higher bandwidth downlink from wherever you're at. This particular experiment, they've got a two-way thing, so it comes down to Earth, and they've got like a communication ring that comes back up. It maintains that lock for a little bit, makes sure that as station's flying overhead, it's flying over one of the JPLs, it's flying over JPL's Optical Communications Telescope Laboratory. Nice. And so it's going to maintain that lock, and it will do demonstrations of transmitting video back and forth. And each one of those demonstrations lasts about 100 seconds or so. That's going to be really cool. So that was, like I said, that was delivered on CRS-3, and that was pulled out of Dragon on, May 7th?
Yeah, it was just like earlier this week.
Yep, absolutely. Now, a couple of uh-ohs. The first one is, once again, on CRS-3, there was a secondary payload that didn't get as much press as the Dragon going up.
Yeah.
The secondary payload was a kicksat. It's actually a CubeSat named kicksat. And on the kicksat are hundreds of these little, what they call sprites. They're these itty-bitty little discs about yay big. And here's an animation of it. So there's the CubeSat going up. It's a tiny little thing. And what's going to happen is, boom, all of these sprites get released into space. And these are all customer sprites. This was a Kickstarter campaign. The funding ended on December 3rd, 2011. So it's been out there for a little while. It launched on this Falcon 9 CRS-3 mission. And it was deployed successfully by the Falcon. So yay, successful deployment. But there was an issue with the computer. There was a hard reset on the Watchdog microcontroller on the kicksat itself. This reset the timer on the kicksat.
Oops.
Yep, brought it all the way back down to 0, which meant it was going to take 16 more days for it to release all the CubeSats, which puts it square into its already re-entered Earth territory. Yeah. So and the radio is off because there's not enough power. So it's this weird kind of game of, okay, well, if they can get, I have it in my notes somewhere here, if they can get 8 volts of power on the batteries, which may not happen in time, the radios will kick on and they can immediately then command it to release the payload.
Right.
So if that happens before it burns up, awesome. Or there was a little bit of a fudge window. Like, we think it will kind of come down like on the 13th.
Right.
But we've got like a 3 to 6 day kind of buffer there. So there's a possibility that it will not actually deorbit. Yeah. And it will, then the timer will go off. It will be, okay, well, 16 days have passed and it will release all of the sprites. Or there's the last possibility of it will deorbit before the sprites are released and plummet back down to Earth. And yeah, that would be sad. But, it's still a cool experiment. And, space is hard. And they did have backup systems, so they did have the ability to radio control it. It just needs a lot of power. And the thing with CubeSats is they need to be small, so you can't have quadruple redundant systems on it. Right. And even if it doesn't successfully do it, I think it was a really good experiment. And I think it'd be cool for them to do it again. Yeah. Because it's citizen science, and I do think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And just in case you think that, oh, well, these silly guys don't know how hard space is, the International Space Station has a partial power loss as well. This happened on May 8th. So this is actually a really great view of just the station and us blinking back and forth really quickly of just the station. So there are the solar arrays, right? And there are 8 of those. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 16 of those. There are 8 sections of those. 5, 6, 7. There's 8 sections of those.
Yes.
And on May 8th, there was a partial loss on one of the channels. And what they think, it does, by the way, poses no risk to the crew. It lost one power channel due to a suspected short in an external power generation component. It's known as the sequential shunt unit. And basically, so it has 8 wings, that's what I meant to say. Each wing generates somewhere between 150 and 170 volts of direct current. That's a pretty large swing, and so we've got these sequential shunt units that regulate that power between 150 and 170 at a very stable 160. Right. And one of those we think we lost one of those, and that caused actually a breaker on the system to break, to blow, whatever it is. Right. And so we did lose some power to the International Space Station. Now, not a huge deal. It's kind of a pain in the butt, though, because what happens is on things like a Soyuz mission that goes up, they have to safe the solar panels because you don't want to have the thrusters thrusting against the panels. Right. And so they don't get as much power generation as normal. So they're getting a little bit less power. And we're at a high beta angle cutoff right now. So in addition to the Soyuz coming up in a couple days, we're at that high beta angle cutoff where they're going to get even less power because there's not as much of the sun hitting the panels. So not a huge deal. I'm sure we'll figure out what needs to be done to fix it. But
you just go down to the basement, flip the breaker.
You just go. You open up the panel, flip the breaker. You go stupid kids. You want to take this last story?
Yeah. So Mars 1, which is a story we've been trying to follow at least since the beginning, has narrowed its pool down to 705. I was going to say participants, but that's not quite the applicants, I suppose, is more the word. Sure. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Mars 1 is trying to get humans to Mars, of course, but they're doing it in a slightly different way than, say, SpaceX or China is trying to do. They're doing it in a privatized manner, and they also want to broadcast the entire process. So applicants, when you applied, besides putting in your $30, you also put in a video. And so they have archived all of these, of course. You could see people's videos, this, that, and the other. And then they started systematically coming down from, I think it was, they'd announced the selection of, 1,058 candidates from the original pool of over 200,000 applicants. That was down from in December 2013. And then they just recently came down to 705 people. And a lot of it has to do with medical reasons. Some people, they got a full health check and then they discovered things that they didn't.
You're not eligible to go to space.
Right, you're not eligible to go to space.
Or what's even more interesting is some people discovered they had cancer, apparently.
Right, really early onset cancer. So, it's good that they figure that kind of stuff out. But yeah, there's those sorts of things. They did some mental health things, and other people had to pull out for unforeseen personal reasons. Yeah, of course. So that makes a lot of sense.
That leaves us with the 705 people out of the original 200,000
candidates. It's
that extra zero makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does. A little bit. So then each one of the candidates is going to be interviewed by the Mars One Selection Committee. And then from there, my understanding is that they will do another pullback and then kind of have their applicant pool. They are still going over other applicants, though, in case somebody from the final pool has to drop out for whatever reason. They're not suitable, they're not working. And they're going to do different teams of people, a man and a woman, from all different countries around the world, because they want to make sure they've got all these different teams. Sure. And so the extra pool will be in case one of those candidates has to drop out for whatever reason. And then the entire process, my understanding, is supposed to be filmed. So all of their training is going to be filmed, all of their preparations are going to be filmed, and eventually it's all going to be broadcast out in a reality/documentary type show.
However that's going to end up. All right, when we come back, we're actually going to be talking more about Mars. The different plans to get to Mars, right, is kind of a summary of all the different companies, space agencies, and everyone else that wants to go to Mars, as well as what we're referring to as the settler's experience. Let's say you get to Mars. Let's just say for a moment, Mars One happens to be the first ones to get to Mars.
Sure.
What's it going to be like for those settlers once they make it there? So stay with us. Tomorrow resumes in a minute.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Filled with some expectation, this girl's a fascination. Nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving, her heat keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking, she's fire walking to be free.
And welcome back to Tomorrow. I wanted to thank all the patrons of Tomorrow who helped make this segment of this episode go. These are the producers of Tomorrow. Even though Still Says Space Vidcast, we don't have the full logo done quite yet. This is anyone who spent $5 or more on this specific episode. And once again, you can go to patreon.com/TMRO if you enjoyed this show and would like to help contribute. All right, so let's talk about the different plans to Mars. And if you look at your show notes, actually, I have this in what I believe to be the order of likeliness of success, like first. So this is like who will likely get to Mars first, because I do believe humanity will make it to Mars before we're wiped off the planet. Hopefully it will happen in our lifetime. I know. All right, so the first one I have are the different plans to Mars. SpaceX. Now, in all fairness, I'm employed at SpaceX. The views and opinions released on the show are not that of SpaceX. All that fun jazz. They have no idea that we do this show. This is not an official mouthpiece of SpaceX. But I do think that SpaceX is our best chance of going to Mars. And I say that because there is this driving passion. It is like everywhere you walk in the building and you can see right next to Elon's desks huge posters of Mars. Like this.
You make your arms like this.
Yeah, no, they're huge, huge posters of Mars. It's written into the DNA of the company of we are going to Mars.
Yep.
Right. So. In addition to that, some of the most powerful rockets, when Falcon Heavy flies, that'll be the most powerful rocket on the face of the planet today. And then there are some, Elon has talked about the Mars colonial transport. So he's been thinking about, how do we actually transport large quantities of humans from here to there.
Right.
And, everything that they do is designed around that. So I think that now SpaceX has not announced what their Martian plans are. And it's not until May 29th when we're even going to see the unveiling of the crew-rated Dragon, which, by the way, if you didn't know, May 29th, unveiling of the crew-rated Dragon. So, at least according to his Twitter account. So, that is what I think will be that I think has the largest chance of success.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, the second one, you might expect me to say SLS, but I don't actually think so. I think the second largest successful player out there is Russia. They talked about, I believe we're bringing back Energia. I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Okay.
But it's essentially their really super ultra heavy lift rocket.
Right.
This thing is Saturn class.
It's massive.
Or bigger, right? This is kind of the same thing they use, the N1 essentially, that they used to try to get to the moon, although that exploded a bunch of times. Russia, I think, is our second best bet. And they did recently announce saying, look, we're starting to build this thing.
Right.
So they could put a human on Mars first. They don't have the same kind of like political back and forth that we really have here in the U.S.
They have a lot more of, look, this is what we're doing, so do it.
Yes, exactly, right? They have a little bit more of the benevolent dictatorship. Words confuse me.
A little bit less red tape, I think, is what you're saying, and at the same time, a lot more pent up energy.
Thank you, Trebles. Energia. Anyhow, so that's my second pick. That's, I think, number 2, second most likely. Third most likely, actually, SLS.
Really?
So Space Launch System, I do believe it will actually get built.
Okay.
We're so far along at this stage that the next president that comes in isn't going to be able to dismantle the project. I suppose they could be president for a day and then immediately cancel it.
Right.
But that doesn't seem like it would be a very good thing. So, because by that time we'll be substantially further along. And keep in mind, at this stage, we're not necessarily over budget and we're not really behind timelines on SLS. So I think we will see our maiden flight of SLS. Now, whether we do anything with that, whether we can afford to maintain to fly it, that's yet to be seen. So what could happen is we'll fly it once, maybe twice, and then maybe it will get canceled, or maybe someone will figure out how to fund it. Maybe we'll figure out how to fly it for less money. But it's just so bloody expensive that I'm not sure how we're going to be able to use it to get to Mars.
Right.
So that's why it's number 3 on my list. ULA has announced no plans, zero desire to do anything other than what they're doing now. So as far as I know, ULA has no plans to go to Mars. So that means no Delta, no Atlas, no additional rockets from ULA. They're just going to keep milking the system, doing what they're doing right now. It makes me a little bit sad because if there was any entity that could get to Mars, I think ULA actually has the ability as a private company to go, all right, let's figure this thing out and figure out how to go to Mars. So ULA may fly SLS, but at the end of the day, they're not building anything themselves. That's not really what they do either.
Right.
And then that really leaves Mars 1. And I
am a little surprised you put them on the list. I'm not going to lie.
Notice the pause. So the thing with Mars 1 is they're not making a rocket.
Right.
And they're not making the technology. They're just using other people's technology to get to Mars.
Right.
So I look at that and I go, okay, well, who are they going to use?
Right.
So they could use SpaceX, but SpaceX has a they have a open loop that goes back and forth. And Mars 1 is like, oh, we just send you there and you die there. Right? So maybe they're going to use Russia, but I mean, they haven't announced anything.
I suppose if they use Russia, then doesn't that count as Russia getting there?
It counts as So I don't know what maybe they will drive someone. Maybe they'll drive someone like ULA. And actually, as Jim said in the chat room, by charter, ULA can't really do anything with what they're doing. Yeah, I mean that's true. I think they could push it. I would argue that times and situations change, and so they could change with the times, and I don't feel that they have. Maybe they can't.
Well, somebody else in the chat room brought up China. Is China going to Mars? Because I think I had mentioned that earlier. And I guess my own personal feeling, and that's something that I had even discussed with Ben so far, is we all pretty much know that China really is making a hard effort to get to the moon. But I sort of feel as though if Andor 1, they do get to the moon, that they're just going to look up and go, well, we already got here.
Let's go to Mars now.
Mars is just like a hop, skip, and a jump further. Like, we can do this, guys. So I wouldn't be surprised if China... I would almost be surprised if China announces anything about Mars before they get there. I sort of feel like China's one of those, like, hey guys, we're here! And then, like, everyone else freaks out because, China got to Mars and didn't tell anybody. But
Yeah, so
that's just me and my
actually,
own
that's why
personal
China's not on my
opinion.
list, is because they haven't announced, so far as I know, at least I don't remember, China has not announced Martian plans for humans, at least.
Right.
They've announced lunar plans, but not Martian plans. India actually is another good one that was brought up in the chat room. They wanted to go to Mars. They've more announced robots than humans.
Right.
And their timelines are so long that
Because
I think
ISRO is
it's
just,
irrelevant.
They're tiny.
Yeah.
They're really tiny.
And then, someone brought up in the chat room again that Mars One is potentially using ULA rockets, and that's a interesting way to go.
Potentially,
it
but
doesn't make sense. So, all right, we're not going to get hung
they
up
haven't
on Mars
inked any
One.
deals.
So, I'm hopeful that Mars One can do something, but I look at that and I go, from a technological standpoint, I just don't see it. It's like I don't get it. So, all right, so SpaceX, Russia, SLS, and then maybe India/China somewhere way down the road.
Sure.
Now let's talk about the settlers' experience. So, great. I'm on my SpaceX rocket.
Sure.
And I've just landed on Mars, and I'm the first settler on Mars. And this is something that I don't think gets talked about a whole lot.
Right.
What's that experience going to be like? Because if I were to poll you guys, right? If I were to poll everyone in the community of tomorrow and say, how many of you, in fact, in the chat room right now, how many of you would take that ticket to Mars? It's not a one-way ticket, but you're there for a while. You're there for at least a couple of years. How many of you would go? It's for free, right? You are being given a ticket to Mars, and you get to be the first group of settlers on Mars. How many of you would take it? I think a lot of us in the space community would say, yes, I will take that ticket.
There's a lot to weigh in on that one, right? Because even if it is a two-way ticket, you can't guarantee it to be a two-way ticket.
Yeah, look at it. Me, yes. Likely,
Right?
yes. Me, not me. Dave would know. So you're all
And
right.
if you do
I
go-
will. Me. Yep.
If you do go and perish for whatever reason, or live, really.
Well, then you're etched into humanity as the first person who died on Mars.
Right. But it sort of doesn't matter, right? Like whoever are the first humans to walk on Mars, that name is going to be etched in history forever and ever, never.
Well, it's not just the first human.
Right.
All right, name the fifth human who walked on the moon.
Sure.
Right. So it's not just the first human who walks on Mars. I think it's the first settlers will have kind of a big impact on that. But here's what I'd like to point out. When you go to Mars,
Yes.
here are some things you will be missing. Plumbing.
Right?
Right? You'll have the plumbing on your spacecraft, but we all know how well that works based on how many times we have to replace the potty on the International Space Station.
Diapers.
No indoor plumbing, right?
Yep.
Electricity. Once
Yep.
again, you'll have whatever your spacecraft brought with you, which is tiny. Not a whole lot. Might have a little bit. Now, you can bring some more stuff with you to help get you more electricity.
You know what I do have, though? Solar panels.
Well, yeah, you can roll out, actually, I think it's part of Mars, where you can roll out solar panels and get some more electricity generation, but you are further away from the sun. So it's going to take a lot more to get a lot more power.
Okay.
You have no internet. I mean, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but you're watching this show on the internet right now. You are chatting with us live if you're watching live on the internet right now. You'll have no internet. There are protocols that allow the internet to go to Mars,
Right.
none of which are in place today.
Okay.
And I do not believe they will be in place and ready to go by the time humans reach Mars.
That's what SpaceX needs to do first, then.
Get internet to Mars?
Yeah.
No
I decided.
phone.
No. That's not.
Can't
an
call
option.
people. Can't talk. You'll be severed from real-time communication from Earth. Now, you can still communicate with Earth.
Okay.
It's going to be like I'm going to round this to a 30-minute round trip.
No.
20 to 30, depends on where Mars is, right?
No.
Yeah. It's going to be, yeah. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a completely new frontier. It will be hard work. It will be deadly work, right? You can't just step outside.
Right.
You know what else you're not going to have? Oceans to look at. You're not going to have green grass to look at.
Right.
You're going to have lots of rocky mountains, which will be gorgeous in kind of this magnificent desolation sort of way.
Right.
but that's what it's going to be. Magnificent. It's a dead planet. The planet is dead. And so that's what you will have for at minimum 2 years. That's what it's going to be like. Right. Now, a lot of you, if you consider this, what this is going to be like, having to use a restroom right next to, like this close to your neighbor.
Right.
Right? That may be what it's going to be like, exactly. And then, actually, it could be that you're eating and I'm pooing.
Oh.
Well, so what's going to be like in the spacecraft, most likely.
No.
Well,
Yes. Go on.
the concept that all of your water will be recycled. All of your water will be recycled.
Right.
And that will be going in and back out of you, around and around in a loop, in an endless loop. Things like that. Now, considering that, and I have a feeling that the community of tomorrow I may not have changed the answer of anyone, nor am I
Probably not.
trying to change your answer.
No.
But I'm trying to get the conversation of what is it going to actually be for these settlers. The settlers of
Right.
tomorrow, of Mars.
Right.
What's it? I'm enjoying the name change so much. Well, what is it going to be like for them? It will be hard work. And I wonder if the Mars One applicants know this or realize this.
Right.
This is nothing like they've experienced before.
Right.
And you can go to the Antarctic. The thing with the Antarctic is you get sick, you can be hella vacked out of there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard, but you can do it. You can leave. You cannot leave Mars. If you get sick, you die there.
Right.
I mean, fatally sick, right?
Right.
So yeah, no, David R. No bright sunny days. If you enjoy going out and just walking outside and having the sun beat down on your face, that is not going to be a thing that happens. Bikini days, they're gone.
I'm okay with that.
I look fantastic in a bikini. Though. Just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Note that I didn't say yes, by the way.
Well, and this is something that I think about because I wonder, would I want to be one of the first settlers on Mars? I would definitely want to visit Mars, but I'm not sure I'd be able to last the full 2 years because I'm a whiny little whinersons. So yeah, as I'm like Dave Maston's probably sitting there going, "Yep, no, he would die on Mars." So, and there's a certain mentality and a certain personality that would thrive on Mars,
Right?
Like Dave Maston, right?
Right.
I mean, I think that he would actually do exceptionally well there. Yeah. Yes. There you go. Things to think about. So I pose this question to all of the community of tomorrow. One, who do you think is going to be the first entity to go to Mars? And the way that Mars One is the answer over SpaceX is if it's Mars One applicants that paid for it,
Right.
and it's Mars One people that get put on the planet by a SpaceX rocket, then it's Mars One.
Okay.
Now, if Mars One only has like one applicant and SpaceX has like 10, and that's what gets put on Mars first, then the answer is SpaceX.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So, because Mars One is the odd duck out. Or is it going to be Russia? Is it going to be India? Is it going to be China? Is it going to be the U.S.? Or is it going to be is it going to be Dave Maston, right? I mean, is it going to be something with the United Launch Alliance? We'll call that even Boeing or Lockheed.
Right.
Right? Who do you think, in your opinion, is going to be the first one to put humans, not robots, but humans on Mars? And when? A decade? 2 decades? A year? 2 years? Never? So, second part of the question, considering all the stuff that you will have to do, would you be willing to be the first group that goes to Mars? Would you be willing to be some of those settlers on Mars? Would you be willing to take that you can return, ignore the Mars One plan for a moment, you can return, you can come back to Earth after 2 years,
Okay.
but would you be willing to spend those 2 years on Mars and be some of the first people there, knowing that there's absolutely no infrastructure there? The only infrastructure that is there is what you bring with you. So think that through. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, comments from last week's show. Stay with us. Tomorrow we'll be right back.
1, 0. Liftoff.
The fleet of space shuttles were doing amazing things in space.
We've got all your space geekery right here.
And welcome back to Tomorrow. Before we get into the comments from last week's show, I did want to give a huge thank you to all the patrons of Tomorrow. Now, this is anyone who's contributed $1 or more. That's right. You only have to contribute $1 to make a huge difference on the show. $1, we'll call that 4 times per month because we'll have up to 4 shows per month. That's $4 per month, around the same as a large mocha at Starbucks or so. Right? That's just give up 1 mocha per month, not even per week, per month, and you can help keep a space show on the air. So thank you to all of the patrons of Tomorrow who have contributed $1 or more to bring this episode to you. You can get more information at patreon.com/TMRO. All right, let's go ahead and get started with some comments from last week's show. The first one is from Chris Howlett. I almost said Hewitt. Chris
Almost.
Howlett.
Almost. Says, I remember back in 2010, Virgin Galactic were saying that they would be flying by the end of the year. And they've been saying that every year since.
I don't think he has a graphic for that one. That's all right.
Totally okay.
That's fine. So that was the entire thing. And yeah, I guess the comment that goes with that is, yeah, now they're 6 months out.
About 6 months out.
About 6
They're
months
pretty
out.
much about 6 months out.
You know, and actually, I recently saw an interview with Sir Richard Branson talking about, you know, once we get the tourist thing done, we can actually turn this into an airline that can possibly get you from the New York to Tokyo
in about an hour.
In under an hour, right? So
well, you still got to include boarding time.
well, do you? I'm not
kidding.
sure. I'm not sure what's actually counted in that time. So that would actually be a really great application for this particular
Yeah.
technology. I think is a rocket plane to anywhere on the planet and getting anywhere you want, going from 12 noon to 12 midnight in 1 hour.
That'd be
essentially.
amazing.
That'd be pretty cool. Way faster than Concorde.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, Bill.
Bill Housley, right? Given that a lot of folks here in the U.S. already chaff at the fact that we pay Russia to launch our astronauts, and Canada's and Japan's, and given the rising spirit of competition in that businesses here, if Russia wants any more money from NASA in future years or anything, then snarky comments from mouthy government officials about trampolines, not helpful.
Could be true. I'm not sure that we're in a verbal war right now. As long as it stays a verbal war and doesn't escalate into anything else, that's fine.
Yeah, but words do hurt. I know.
Yeah, that's true.
Sticks and stones and all that other fun stuff, but words can hurt, and it can speak to intention, and it can speak to what's the other word I want? Sort of. Well, I mean, intention is good, I suppose. You make one sort of snarky comment, fine. You make one sort of jest, okay. But sincerely, that was like a threat. That was practically a threat of, oh yeah, well, if you want us to do anything, that's cute. You might have to be using trampolines.
In all
soon.
fairness, Elon poked the bear.
Sure, Elon did, but why take it out on the whole other government?
Because
then?
to them, it's no different, right?
It's totally different.
All right. So I mean, yeah.
Just saying.
Now, interesting comment, which is why we brought it up. But yeah, we'll see. All right, from Bernhard.
Yeah, Bernard Pickler. Oh, see, why you always give it's the hard names. Anyway,
I did that on purpose.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, we will see SpaceX landing a first stage rocket soon, but imagine how awesome it will look when they launch the Falcon Heavy and the two first stage rockets landing simultaneously, like magic.
Totally agree. I think so. There was something magical and beautiful about the space shuttle that rockets just aren't the same, right? When you watch a space shuttle, it was just you even if you put humans on a Soyuz, not the same, not the same as a space shuttle. However, I think that same magic is captured in a returning rocket stage with landing legs on it. There's something magical and beautiful and magnificent about it that you just don't get with other rockets. And I think that first off, just even landing one core of the first stage will be pretty awesome on land, right? Where it launches, the cameras follow it up, and the onboard cameras follow it up, and then all of a sudden it comes back down, and the cameras tilt back down and watch it land back down on the landing pad while you're still watching the other stage go up. That is going to be epic.
We're going to need split screens.
Well, we're going to need split screen. The second thing that's going to be epic, and Bernhard is not wrong, when you've got multiple stages coming back down, and you're going to have a tri-screen, so you can, or quad screen if you actually, if it's a heavy and you do eventually get all three first stage cores back, and that just.
Can we do a little Benny Hill situation where the cores kind of dance around each other a little bit as they come down?
I have a nagging suspicion they're going to be nowhere near each other when they come back down.
Just curious.
You don't want them to hug each other at all. I think that'd be a bad thing.
It's a special hug between some special cores.
All right. Next comment.
Sorry.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't really either. Kelch says, very nice episode, guys. Love seeing Benjamin enjoying his cheesy TMRO thing.
It is not cheesy. Okay, so
yes, it is. Love the After Dark. It was so crazy. You should post it. And love the Silent Blue Guy.
First off, I have no idea what you're talking about with regards to the Silent Blue Guy.
I just blew myself.
Secondly, what do you guys think about the After Dark episodes? The thing is, they're not.
They're not real episodes.
They're not real. They're not episodes. They're just us dorking around. I feel like it's a reward for you watching live, right? And even if you're a patron, And we absolutely appreciate the patrons. We do have other rewards for our patrons other than After Dark. They also take quite a bit of time for us to cut up and make into things. And so, it takes bandwidth and it's what a pain in the butt. So, do you really want them? I mean, how many people actually care? If it's like 5 people, then I'm not going to bother with it. If it's like 100 people, then yeah, maybe we'll reconsider it. So, what do you guys think? How many people want us to post After Dark? Probably not on our main channel, but somewhere.
A different channel.
Yeah. So
tomorrow after dark.
Yeah. So and even in the chat room right now, they're saying this should stay alive. Don't post it. Right. I mean. And I realize it's not fair to everyone around the world, right? Because this could be 2 a.m. for some people.
Sure, but half the time it's just like dorky, like stupid conversations about how hungry we are and if we're going to go to Disney or not. And then
are we going to go to Disney today?
I don't know. But there are other times when we do have some really interesting conversations that happen after dark. So it's kind of a 50-50 shot, I suppose.
I guess. If we did post it, we'd probably actually as Fahuga Gods mentioned in the chat room, I don't think we'd post it on our main channel. We'd probably make another After Dark channel only. That way it doesn't get in the way of the other stuff. You could possibly subscribe to that. But again, it's... let me know. If we have a bunch of people that ask for it, then maybe... All right. Tomorrow ad.
That's,
Next is
Michael V says, can't do vertical integration? Did someone say 39A?
This is in regards to SpaceX, where we said, look, they're not saying that they should win all the contracts. They just want the right to compete. But I'm not entirely sure why ULA is so worried, because right now, today, if they were to compete for a rocket launch today that was launching tomorrow, SpaceX would not win. They can't win because they can't do vertical integration. That comment holds true. Even with 39A today, they can't do it. Now they own the pad and they will hopefully eventually be able to do vertical integration.
They've leased the pad for 20 years.
That's more true than what I said. They've leased the pad for 20 years, and it is possible they could do vertical integration on 39A, but they cannot do that today. So the fact remains, today, SpaceX cannot win these contracts. Once they have vertical integration down, there you go. And it seems logical that it would go on 39A.
It does seem logical.
Yep. But today, irrelevant.
Elon's not logical.
But we're talking about tomorrow on this show.
Wow.
It's not cheesy.
Not yet. So, David Norton says, I was interested in the ATK sports angle too, and it turns out that the ATK sporting does ammunition, firearms, and hunting accessories. So kind of along the same lines of, quote, tubes filled with combustible materials.
David, awesome. Thank you.
Hilarious, first of all.
Yeah, no, awesome. Actually, it didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, why is ATK doing sports and rockets? What the?
Right.
What the?
Because I think we were thinking soccer balls and tennis rackets.
I totally was. That's exactly what I was thinking. But bullet filled with solid fuel versus rocket filled with solid fuel. I didn't know. I
see what you did there.
I see how that works. So I figured I'd leave that in there for all the...
Thank you for that. Because
all the community of tomorrow now understands why ATK did sporting goods as well.
That now makes...
Originally, it blew my mind. I had no idea why they did sporting goods. I'm like...
Totally random.
What a weird combination.
Hey, by the way, you know what else SpaceX does? Keychains. Huge keychain
It's like
manufacturer.
ATK, we make solid fuel. We're taxidermy. Cheese.
Sounds like they're based in Wisconsin instead of Utah. Okay.
Cheese and taxidermy, Wisconsin.
Marius says... Goodness. It's strange that you forgot to talk about Bigelow. I'd say expandable space modules is one of the most interesting things to look forward to, and they may well become the first company to launch a commercial space station, if it all goes well. They also have a planned 2015 launch of the Beam module to the ISS.
Totally correct. I cannot believe either. I'm 100% on the same page. I cannot believe I forgot to mention Bigelow.
Right. This is why we forgot to mention Bigelow. Because Bigelow, ironically, a lot like China, doesn't say much of anything until they're like, oh, by the way, we totes have modules in space. What?
Kinda. No, I mean, they talk about it, and we know.
They kind of don't, though.
No.
They're not as big into me. I feel like I know more about what Orbital Sciences is doing than what Bigelow is doing.
No, I mean, they've got the BA, 335 module that they're waiting to fly into space. They've got these huge modules. They're waiting on someone who can carry this stuff up to space.
Sure, they're doing stuff. I don't mean that. I mean, they're not as secretive as Blue Origin, but I really don't feel like Bigelow is as loud about it.
It's because they have this stuff that no one can bring to space. Right, so that I think is part of the issue with Bigelow's. They're not being quiet, they're not being secretive. It's that
they're being patient.
They're being patient. That's exactly what it is. They're like, come on, guys, we figured this out. Anyone? Bueller. So SLS may help them.
Sure.
Falcon Heavy, I'm not sure if I think BA 335 will fly in a Falcon. Chat room, we determined this once before, and you all told me what the answer was, and I have since forgotten. But BA 335, that will fly in a Heavy, right?
BA
330, I'm sorry. It's too big to launch on any current flying rocket, but it should fly in Heavy, BA 330. Yeah, so regardless, Bigelow is years ahead of anyone else, and I'm excited for the day when we've got a private space station brought up by a private space company with private astronauts, and you can go up and visit yourself and orbit the Earth. I think that would be awesome. In fact, speaking of the HDEV experiment, I happen to have running just all the time. Tim, would you mind bringing up, it's labeled Skype in your system? This is a live view from outer space on the HDEV. This is what it would look like out the window of your BA 330 HAB module as you're orbiting Earth.
P.S. Totally a brilliant reason to have an extra monitor at any display you have. At any computer desk, anywhere where you sit, you have a computer in front of you. I don't care if it's a laptop. Get another screen, another laptop, another something. Put this on your TV when you're just, dorking around on your laptop in your living room. Amazing just to simply have and look out every once in a while and see this.
Yes. So this is available. We actually showed it last week, but it was only a gray screen because the experiment goes down often. Now, things to remember, there are 45 minutes or so of the dark side of Earth, at which point this screen will be black. And there are 45 minutes of the light side of Earth, at which point you will see this.
Superstars totally do that. If
really?
You can. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Ugh, it's cheesy.
It's whatever.
No, this is way cooler than that. So, 45 minutes by 45 minutes.
Oh, it's so cool. I love it.
I gotta turn this way.
I love it.
I'm gonna speak to the Earth now.
Okay.
No, all right. So 45 by 45, and then you're gonna get this gray screen in between. But it is a gorgeous view. It's available on Ustream.tv, and if you, we'll add the link to it in our show notes. It's also available on our Reddit page. If you are on Reddit and you've been following along, this is kind of our version of forums, right? So a bunch of the community of tomorrow have been begging for forums for the last 6 years or 7 seasons, and this was like, all right, let's try this as an experiment and see how far we can go. So if you want for realsies forums, we at the very least should be able to fill up our subreddit at reddit.com/r/TMRO. Feel free to post stories about anything related, right? Long range communication stuff, future of humanity kind of stuff, like are we going to live forever? Habitat stuff, rocket stuff, anything that impacts the future of humanity can go in there. You can ask questions, you can post links, whatever you want to do. And it's starting to blossom a little bit. We're starting to get a little bit going on over there. So once again, reddit.com/r/TMRO. I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching this week. It's been a blast. It's been a lot of fun. If you're watching live, stay with us. After Dark is up next. Otherwise, there will be no show next week. I will be at the International Space Development Conference right here in Los Angeles on a panel talking about media in space, I believe. And that show happens to begin, or that panel happens to begin right at 2 p.m., right when this show would normally be. The week after that, once again, no show. However, for our patrons, we will have one more of those patron talks this month. So we'll send out information. We'll do a Google Hangout. So if you'd like to be part of this Google Hangout, this kind of exclusive one-on-one, I think all the patrons who joined last time had a lot of fun. You get to see the archived version of it. Well, you can ask any question you want. It's way two-time dual view interactive. It's pretty awesome. So Become a patron to participate in that. That will happen 2 weeks from now. And then 3 weeks from now, possibly no show again. So
We're not sure at this point.
we're not sure at this point. So lots of weird kind of gaps in this show. We're going to try to bring you stuff as we can. There's also a possibility of maybe me doing show solo, because I know you guys don't like it when we're off the air for long periods of time. If you are a patron and you're worried, oh, I don't want to pay for something that's not happening, the cool thing about Patreon is that you only pay when we release an episode.
Right.
If we do not release an episode, you do not pay.
Yep.
So on that note, I'd like to thank everyone so much for joining us. Stay with us. After Dark is up next, and we'll see you someday in the future. That's pretty much it. That's the only shot we could really find, because it was a spy satellite. This launched Tuesday, May 6th at 13:49 Coordinated Universal Time. It's likely a Cobalt-class imaging satellite for the Russian military. That was a Soyuz 2.1A, and you can see some of the information on the sidebar about that particular rocket. It likely has an optical camera for high-resolution photos taken around the Earth. Now, the thing about the Cobalt-class satellites is we think, again, it's a classified satellite, so we don't have a lot of information on it, but we think it's like old school 60s era, take film of what you're looking at and drop the film canister back to Earth. I know.
That's awesome.
But you know what? Other than
It's
someone
like
intercepting
basically
it,
unhackable.
yeah, I was gonna. Other than someone intercepting it,
Right.
you can't hack the payload, because you have to physically get the payload. How cool is that? So we don't know. It's classified, but I'm
Also,
gonna,
really appreciate the simultaneous earthquake that happened right there.
I like the. Was there really one?
No,
Oh, all right.
it's just the camera was doing this for a second.
I like the I like that particular launch photo, because it's one of the few times you can see the actual raw power of a Soyuz
Yeah,
rocket.
no, that was
Usually
really
the
cool.
cameras are far enough away where you don't really get to see it shake and just rattle.
Yeah.
But that was pretty cool.
No, that was really cool.
Speaking of Russia, no more Russian injunction function. That's just fun. It's fun to say. So last week's show, we talked about how there was an injunction against ULA from buying Russian engines, specifically the RD-180. That's
Yeah.
the engine that they use on the Atlas V. A judge had said, this might not be legal, but
Otherwise, you're looking at, like I said, I mean, theoretically, if ULA can launch between 2015 and 2017, and then if these engines aren't done, but no later than a net date, as it were, that's an important detail. So I just wanted to make sure, because I was like, I didn't want there to be. That was a scary thing.
it's not like
That's what we brought up originally, was like, what if there's going to be this gap, and then what are they going to do?
Well, they'd launch on a Delta IV, because the Delta IV does not use Russian engines.
Right.
The problem is the Delta IV costs more than an Atlas V.
Like a lot more.
So, I mean, it does. It's a more expensive rocket.
Yeah.
So, now, this hasn't fully passed. It still needs to be approved by the House and agreed by the Senate and President Obama. So, there's still some steps that need to be done, but it's a bill that's pushing through. So we'll see what happens there. So speaking along those, actually, someone had asked earlier, is this... Johan asked, is this bad for SpaceX? And Elon Musk lost the battle. No, well, first off, he's in a war to go to Mars, so this is just one little, right? I mean, this
Doesn't bother him at all.
Right, yeah.
But then cooperation.
I'm sure he's not exactly happy about it. I don't know for certain, but I don't think they've lost anything. And if anyone missteps, then these injunctions can get put back into place.
Yep.
Really what it comes down to is Elon wants the right to bid for Department of Defense launches. He doesn't necessarily say we should get them. He just wants the right to bid for them. And so
He's paving the way.
He's paving the way. And speaking of Elon Musk, SpaceX, we this actually happened last week, but we ran out of time in last week's show. This is a fairly long clip, but it is so awesome. We're going to roll the whole thing anyhow. This is the F9er, so the Falcon 9 reusable Dev 1, Development 1 unit, 1,000 meter jump. This is the highest that any of the F9ers have jumped. And this is higher than Grasshopper ever jumped. Remember, Grasshopper is retired, has been replaced with F9er Dev 1. Check this out. Right, of the U.S. buying engines from Russia for military payloads for the Department of Defense on top of an Atlas V, they were like, "This is not okay, guys. Maybe we should consider bringing the engine production in house."
Right.
So legislation was passed by a House subcommittee on Wednesday, May 7th, that says the U.S. military is going to spend $220 million the first year, and they're going to kick off a new U.S. engine development program. And the program has to have an engine ready no later than 2019.
Right.
So this is basically to replace the RD-180, or at least bring its production in-house,
right,
and allow a United Launch Alliance or someone else to use this engine, so commercial providers in the U.S. can use this engine without any fear of sanctions or anything else out of the U.S. from them purchasing these engines.
Which is something that we talked about when this issue first came up. We said that even if they brought everything in-house, who knows how long exactly it's going to be until they were going to be ready, with full production on this, and that the ULA has a stockpile of engines. They said good for about 2 years worth of launches. It's currently 2014, even if you say that 2015 to 2017, and these engines theoretically may not be ready until 2019?
Well, maybe, right? The bill states, quote, should develop a next generation liquid rocket engine that is made in the United States, meets the requirements of the national security space community, is developed not later than 2019.
Okay.
Right? So no later than, is developed using full and open competition and is available for purchase by all space launch providers of the United States. So in theory, based on this bill, SpaceX could buy these engines and drop them into their rockets if they wanted to. I'm not saying they would, I'm saying they could, right? So later than 2019.
No later than 2019. Okay, good. Because
Judge Susan G. Braden basically said, okay, here's the deal. We're not sure if this is legal. We need to go to the Treasury and State Departments and ask them.
Right.
Well, the Treasury and State Departments got back and said, yeah, no, it's fine. So on May 8th, 2014, the same judge, Judge Susan G. Braden, dissolved the injunction and said, no, you're fine. So now United Launch Alliance can, in fact, once again buy from Russia for the RD-180 engines that they use on the Atlas V rocket.
And good on that judge, being able to say, hey, hold on a second. We need a minute just to get all of our facts straight. Got all the facts straight and then said, oh yeah, no, that's totally a thing. It's okay. We're going to
But it's not necessarily done, right? So the order stands unless, quote, unless and until the court receives the opinion from the Treasury, Commerce, and State Departments that the engine purchases do not contravene sanctions against Rogozin. I can't pronounce his name.
Rogozin?
Yeah, sure. And so, if at any time the U.S. the U.S. government can go back at any time and say, actually, no, it looks like he is in fact benefiting from these purchases, and then the injunctions will be put back into place.
Yep.
So they have to. They don't have to continuously prove that the Russians aren't making the guy who's under sanctions, right? So basically what it comes down to is the head guy of Roscosmos is in the sanctions list, and we're not allowed to give him money or do anything that will allow him to profit from us, essentially.
He's in a timeout.
He's in a timeout by the U.S. government.
We're not supposed to talk to him right now.
We're not supposed to talk to him right now. And so United Launch Alliance buys engines from essentially his company. And so as long as it's only his company that benefits and not him personally, we're okay. But as soon as he personally benefits from it, the government can go, whoa, not cool, guys, and prevent United Launch Alliance from buying it again. Which brings up an interesting idea. So this whole little snafu. Coming up, Soyuz launch.
A 1,000-meter jump.
Kicksat ran into a little bit of trouble. Plus, we talk about the Mars settler experience. Stay tuned. This is tomorrow.
Private space station.
And welcome to Tomorrow, episode 7.14 for Saturday, May 10th, 2014. My name is Benny H, and with me as always is HB1, which stands for Honey Bunny number 1. We'll be your hosts for this episode. We've got a great deal of space news coming up, and I'd like to thank the people who have sponsored the space news episode of tomorrow. These are the patrons of tomorrow. They've spent at least $10 on this specific episode. So they've said, you know what, these episodes are awesome. I'm going to give you at least $10 for this specific episode to make it go. And you can learn more about that at patreon.com/TMRO. And as a reminder, we are a crowd-funded show. So if you enjoy the show, you get something of value out of the show, please consider giving value back to the show by sponsoring us. You don't have to sponsor us at that level. That's an insane, awesome level. But you know, every dollar helps. Right? It's cray.
Crazy.
All right. First up, a Soyuz launch of a spy satellite. We've got some kind of launch coverage. And by the way, you don't know it yet, but stupid water droplet.